Securities offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through CWM, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Carson Partners, a division of CWM, LLC, is a nationwide partnership of advisors. This is The Way to Wealth, with host Scott Ford, a jiu-jitsu fighting, woodworking, beekeeping entrepreneur who is also the managing director, partner, and wealth advisor of Carson Wealth. Financial freedom is the goal, and clarity and simplicity is how we'll get there. Let's get to it. This is Way to Wealth.
And welcome back to the Way to Wealth podcast, where we're all about making money simple, allowing you to focus on living now, not 30 years from now. So excited today, super excited to have a team member. As I like to say, I'm always the weakest link. And again, today, that certainly will be the case with Jake Stone. Jake has an MBA, super smart, competent advisor on the team, been with us for years. And you'll be happy to meet him, learn more about him, what he does, what he focuses on, and his area of expertise as far as strengths. And so, Jake, welcome to the Way to Wealth podcast first.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I always like to start, Jake, with just, I know you, but listeners may or may not. So I always like to start with just the backstory as far as, your backstory, what got you here with this podcast with me today, a little bit about that.
Sure. So I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. So in relation to Johnson City, it's about 5 hours east of here. Grew up playing a lot of sports. I'm a big sports person, as many people in the office here know. But, golf is what stuck to me. Grew up on a golf course and, I love the competition of it. But, I still take lessons that I learned from playing competitively, such as it is the only sport you call penalties on yourself. So you have to have a little bit of honesty if you want to succeed in it. You have to push yourself to succeed, self-discipline. You don't have a coach, you don't have teammates. So you really have to be striving to be great and put in the work ethic on your own. Then it also teaches you responsibility and humility, because you only have yourself to blame, right? You only can point the finger at yourself, but that also helps you learn and to get better too, when you can accept full responsibility. But with that being said, I grew up in Raleigh, came to King University in Bristol, Tennessee. So it's a Division II school. Came on an athletic and academic scholarship and graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2016 in economics. Then I went back to King in the fall of that year to work my Master of Business in Administration. And so while I was doing that, I was also the graduate assistant for the men's and women's golf team there. So it definitely was a different experience going from the player to the coach. But you learned a lot how to recruit, all the work that goes into running a collegiate athletic program. And then that spring, it was a 1-year program, so a lot of classes over 10 months, but graduated with my MBA then spring of 2017. And then what was so crazy was I graduated on a Saturday, which was April 29th, I believe, and started in the financial service industry that Monday. So I had 1 day off for a summer break, so to speak. So started with Carson. I've been a operations associate, client relationship manager, director of operations, and now wealth advisor. So I'd say that, I started from the bottom and just learned more and more every year. But I feel like after becoming an advisor, my skills are being maximized. But it also does help to know the other odds and ends of the industry, because knowledge is power. So it's been very, very important to my success.
Yeah, for sure. And I can relate to that too. I've played every position and role in the organization, and it started with me. So I pretty much got to do it all. So, and there's benefit to that, because then you can relate to, what everyone's doing, and you just understand the whole process. So there's benefit in that. The other thing you made me think of, Jake, when you're talking about golf and that, you call penalties on yourself. I can remember being at a local country club in a tournament, and I just lost focus. And a guy who's, just passed several years ago, he was 94 years old. He was a dear friend. He was actually a mentor in life to me in a lot of ways. basically was there, and I took a practice swing. I just wasn't paying attention. I nicked my ball. It might have taken one rotation, and it's like, oh, but it is what it is. It's like, he's like, yep, you're laying 3. I'm like, oh, all right. I know. I get it. Here we go. So anyway, yep, that's the game. So with the Way to Wealth, I talk about this a lot. It's all about making money simple. And, I've shared my story a lot of why that's important to me, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on why is making money simple important to you?
Sure. So I've always thought, just from past experience in my life, and I grew up in a very diverse area. So you had people of all different walks and backgrounds and family dynamics and whatnot. And you mentioned our industry being complicated. So one reason I think it's complicated is because it's not taught at the high school level or the college level. So when someone gets into the real world, their financial literacy is not there. And it can be something as, what we believe is simple as getting a mortgage, or, how do you balance a checkbook? Examples like that. And I just think how do you pay your taxes? There's so many things that just aren't taught. And so I think that's one reason it's very complicated to a lot of people, is because they don't learn it, whether that's in high school or college. A lot of colleges don't even teach it either. So with it being complicated, my passion is to really educate clients on how they can understand their financial picture, but also keeping it simple when you explain it. So using visuals or one-page tools or anything that can bring experts in to go over estate planning or whatnot, because it's all part of the big picture. But, that's just kind of always been my pain point with financial literacy in our industry. It's that we make it so complicated that it's not even taught at such an important age to people.
Yeah, I love it. Agreed. And, I know I say this too, but the 3 big things Way to Wealth was created for is that there's not near enough listening. Like we hear a part of the conversation launched to solutions, and that never ends well. I don't care what industry you're in. 2, not nearly enough teamwork, too many silos and egos. And 3, not nearly enough financial education. And you touched on that. So it doesn't matter what level of academia you've been through. This isn't taught. And in any area that it is typically not taught well, in my mind. And one example that we'll get into a little bit today, what we're going to talk about that I'll pinpoint here is just opportunity cost. So we're going to be talking about savings and cash. And one of the things that's missed in this area as an example of financial education is pay cash for everything. Pay cash for everything. Well, is that the best idea? Maybe it is, but the point is where people aren't educated and what people don't talk about is opportunity costs. When and if you pay cash for everything, which is what I was always taught, that money's gone forever. And so the compounding and use of that dollar is gone forever. So there's other ways and other things to think about it, but that's why financial education is so important. So we have our 3-bucket approach. So the E in wealth, E is establish savings. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, Jake. Bucket 1 in our 3-bucket approach. So it's savings, income, and growth. We want to make sure we have savings, income to cover expenses, and then we can swing for the fences on growth. Today's bucket 1. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on why is bucket 1, why is savings so important?
Sure. So, in our process, we believe it's the most important piece. You can't move on to the income or the growth unless you have this one taken care of. And you talk about over our process, and we teach clients this: when you're living your life now, it means having a nest egg of cash or some sort of asset that's readily available for use. And so at a minimum, we recommend 1 year of household expenses in the savings bucket. That's the minimum that we always preach to our clients. But a lot of people, especially going through a pandemic, have actually built that up because of the fear that it's created over the past year. I think we can use pandemic proof for a very long time, and especially in our lives, experiencing in 2020. But the purpose of it is to have that pandemic proof money where if there's an emergency that comes along, or even better, an opportunity, it's there when building comes along, you want to buy a car, whatnot, it's all there. And like we said, you can't move on to the rest unless this one is taken care of.
Yeah, agreed. What would you say, thinking about savings and investing. What are your thoughts on what is the difference between savings and investing?
We have a lot of confusion with most people and with clients when you talk about this, or just when you're educating them through the process. So the savings, like I mentioned, is used for emergencies or opportunities, and you need quick access to the money. Now, there's different ways that you can save in efficient manners, and certain ways work for some people versus others, which that's all part of the process. They're in the way to wealth. But the purpose of having the savings is to live fully now, and it's going to be low risk. So the investing is when you're putting money into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, or whatever the method is, and you're looking to achieve a higher rate of return on your money. But the problem is you're taking more risks to do so. So that's what comes with investing, right? There is going to be risk. And so this is the money you will not be touching for 10 years, at a minimum of 10 years. So you kind of have to, put your blinders on and say, this money isn't really there because it's not here for me to access right now. It's used for inflation and then retirement. So that's really the difference. It's one is long-term, one is short-term, but to live life now, that investment piece doesn't help you do that. It's the savings.
Yeah, that's helpful. So think about it like this. I like to say, you mentioned the pandemic, and no matter what it is, whether it's, you end up in war, or there is another pandemic, or I heard years ago, a colleague of mine was a mentor in the business out of Virginia, since retired, said there's always BST. I'm like, BST. And he said, capital B, capital S, capital T. And he was a technical analysis, and that's my background, technical analyst. And he's like, there's always BST in the market. I'm like, and he's like, big, scary things. Every year, there's some big, scary thing in the market. And it's true. You could just go year to year. There's always the big, scary thing. And it always has been and always will be. Our biggest risk is emotions, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. So let's just say there's another BST, big scary thing, and it's a 20% downturn in the market, and you're in S&P 500 low cost Vanguard funds because what you believe in, you want to index. Okay, fine. Your $1 million is now worth 800,000. So it's hard for people to sit with something like that happening. Yet, if you had savings and you had a minimum of 1 year, and you knew at least 10 years of your income was covered, or all, which is bucket 2, would you be more comfortable sitting there in bucket 3, knowing that $1 million went to 8, but you had 10 years income and you had cash? I think we know the answer, right? And that's why we do that. And some want all income covered. And the other thing I add to that is difference between savings and investing, because I know, been doing this a long time, since 91, and I've had lots of conversations as far as savings, and I've heard, I'm savings. Great. What are you doing? He's like, look, I'm maxing out my 401k. I got a company match, and also have some stocks and mutual funds. And that's great, but that's not saving. That's investing. And investing's great. Investing's where you're putting money for growth set aside, and you may go up, may go down. There is opportunity of loss. And like you articulated, savings is where no opportunity for loss. It's there, it's safe, and it's liquid, readily available. The 401k is not readily available. That's set aside and set up for future retirement, and you're looking to grow the money. So it's so, I believe, critical to understand there's a huge difference between savings and investings, and it's why we allocate this way. And as you said, it's why we start with the savings piece. And that savings piece is not only emergency money, but opportunity money. You need both. Opportunity money is just having dry powder, letting the game come to you that you got cash. And if you see something that you like real estate, or you like the stock market, or you like buying businesses, whatever your investor DNA is, you have dry powder that you can deploy. So you need both emergency and opportunities. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on that?
No, it completely makes sense. And, one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett, he always said, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. And so that quote would be savings for liquid, readily available, not for investing, because the most important asset you have is what you can get now.
Yeah.
And, like you alluded to, there's other ways that you can add money for retirement, whether, Roth options or traditional health savings accounts are another way that you can allocate it. But that's all investing because it's tied to the market, which we have no control over. We always tell clients if we had a crystal ball outside our front office, we would have a line down the street, but that's just not the case.
We talk about emergency opportunity funds, and I agree with that savings is there for that. Savings is also there for fun. Like, one of the things of living now is, what percentage of this bucket can we put in there for just whatever money, like guilt-free spending for you, your wife and family, to live life now to its fullest. So I think that's another allocation we want to make sure we have in that savings bucket. What would you say, Jake, examples of people you have seen that have done this well?
So one of the best, and actually I learned this from my parents. My dad was a CPA for a Big Four accounting firm for over 20 years. And I've seen people structure their savings. So you have the big savings bucket, but then you have buckets within there. So what I mean by that is, have 1 year of your household expenses, right? So you're looking at your mortgage payments, car insurance, home insurance, your milk and bread money that you need to run your household, and utilities would be in that also. Then you would segment an opportunity for a big purchase. So that could either be a car, it could be, hey, maybe there's a property that came available that I want to invest in. Right now it's expensive with land costs, but hopefully that'll go the other way soon. And then also one of them is emergencies, like the pandemic proof. So I always believe there's an emergency that's different from your household expenses. And that means, hey, I need a new heat pump, or, something, an appliance burned out or something like that I need cash available to pay for it. And then, like you said, vacations and entertainment. So mine would be labeled golf clubs. But my wife and I, we love to travel. So when we save every month, we put some into a travel bucket. So that way, when we go on a vacation, we have that sound mind that, hey, we saved for this. We're fine. We can enjoy it, and we don't have to worry about nickel and diming. And it's always harder to fix something after it happens than it is to just prepare for it when you already know that event's coming. You can allocate it, bank accounts, dividend paying whole life insurance. Not all of these options have to be in the same place, but it's good just to have them out there for your needs.
What about done not so well? What about savings, that emergency opportunity bucket, done poorly or just not so good? Example there?
Sure. So I actually have a client who all they did was and I'll use quotations, save for retirement. So they're putting all their money in a traditional 401k, which, as we all know, Uncle Sam gets a little sliver of that. And that rate in the future, we don't know. And they had to do a lot of home renovations. And what happened is they'd have to pull it from that IRA because they don't have sufficient amount of savings, and they've got to pay taxes on a portion of that based at their ordinary income rate. And so by them not having that opportunity fund or emergency cash readily available, that hurt their financial picture in the long term, which prevents them from living now because they had to alter their plan now and in the future.
Yeah, that's a great example. And, it's like, I've heard it said, and I agree with this, that I get the budgeting has its place. I also think that budgeting sucks for the most part. So it's like, can you just simplify this in such a way that you can live life and enjoy it, making sure you're thinking about the future and living it to its fullest now. And again, that's part of the idea of allocating the way we allocate is, yes, you can. And that's the idea of doing that. So that's a great example, because they're thinking that they're saving. Well, they're actually not, they're investing. And so then you set yourself up for failure by not having that money that's readily available for emergencies and opportunities. What would be some examples or options that people listening should be thinking about that are out there for savings?
So everyone knows a lot of banks are going online, and brick and mortar banks are dinosaurs and archaic. So, you do get your online banks that do offer high interest rates, whether in a money market account or some sort of CD or whatnot. But there are rules with how many withdrawals you can take, and then it's illiquid for a year, whatever the terms are. But one really good option is something called the infinite banking concept, and it's using dividend paying whole life insurance. And you not only have the insurance piece, but you also have the cash value, which is tax free. That's part of the tax free funnel, one of the few things that is tax free, and it can grow tax free. So what it does, it creates a family bank, and by using a mutual company, so one that's not publicly traded, you can distribute dividends that are at a much higher rate than a money market account or CD. And then plus, when you own a policy like this, it allows you to dictate the cash flow in your life because you're borrowing from yourself, and you're not depending on, hey, what's the rate at the bank? Or, hey, maybe I need to get a home equity line of credit or whatnot. And like I mentioned, it does pay out dividends, meaning it generates a form of income that is low volatility, and it increases the cash value of the policy over the time. And people use these as banks by putting more money in and funding the policies to help grow the cash value. And when it's not correlated to the market, and it's perfect for opportunity funds, that's where we found it very successful.
Yeah. So it's interesting you say that. I started my career in insurance in the early 90s, transitioned to investment management and full wealth management in the late 90s. I have never turned back. And, I found out and heard about this through a colleague. They called it cash flow banking, which is really infinite banking. And I was like, need to learn more because I don't quite get this. And I did a deep dive of several years due diligence. And actually this now is one of my favorite tools. It is my favorite tool for the cash bucket. The savings bucket, hands down for me, is using this infinite banking process, which is dividend paying whole life with the mutual company. And as Jake is saying, that mutual piece is key because that means you own the company, which is why you get to participate in the profits of the company. And so you are basically acting and using this as your own bank. And so I really love this for the cash piece. Now, some don't. And so that's where a savings account, maybe a CD, but something, what we're saying about cash is liquid and readily available to get your hands on, and does it go down in value? So that's how we're categorizing it. So yeah, it's my favorite tool. You could call it, I've heard it called strategically designed life insurance, but again, whole life with a mutual company. So well said. You think about taxes, you just compare it to anything else that's out there. It's very solid for that savings bucket. I was going to ask you, I don't think I did have asked you this, Jake. Who's your favorite golfer?
I'm a big Phil Mickelson guy. I have to go with lefty, and watching him this year on the PGA Championship with the crowd following him at Kiowa, and he's got his big, black Ray-Bans on, and being the oldest to win a major was pretty cool. I've been to a lot of golf tournaments, the Masters and whatnot, but he's definitely the most enjoyable to follow. No matter how good or bad he's playing, he's very interactive with the fans, and it's just cool to see him succeed, especially at that age. That was probably between him and Tiger, the last few years in majors. Those are two really good stories for the game of golf.
I like Phil as well. That was my brother's favorite golfer. My brother was left-handed as well, so he was a little delusional as well. He used to think he was going on tour and was going to be the next Phil Mickelson. My question for you would be this: would you rather have Phil Mickelson's swing or his clubs?
I have to have his swing because I hope that in 20 years I can swing the golf club like him, or even have the time to do so. But he's changed his swing for his age, and he's gotten in better shape and whatnot. And a lot of those guys on tour have. So Definitely having the swing and the muscle memory would be the go-to.
Yeah, makes complete sense. That's my answer too. And I didn't think about it, right? With your background, having a scholarship at golf, you can play. And so, yeah, the point is that's the right answer. So same for me, I would take Phil's swing all day long, or Tiger Woods, or whoever your favorite golfer is, not the clubs. And so the point with that is it's the same with the process. So that's why we created Way to Wealth. It's the process. A tool in the savings cash piece could be a specifically designed life insurance policy, like creating that banking system, or could be cash, or could be, savings, or that's the club. And there's a right club for each situation, which is important. What I wanted to end on the golf analogy with is the process is the key. It's like the same in surgery. You got to have a checklist, and there's a process that should be gone through. So really the key to success in my mind in making money simple and in creating and sustaining wealth is the process, and ours is the Way to Wealth. And then what tool do you use in there? Well, we can discuss that based on your investor DNA, what you're comfortable with and what you like. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely a good analogy. And one thing that I've told people who, are golf enthusiasts, and we'll use that as an example, is that we're essentially your caddy. So if anyone thinks that a caddy is someone who just, lugs around Phil Mickelson's clubs for 72 holes a week, that's definitely not true. He had the same caddy for over 20 years. They're very highly qualified and very experienced individuals. And people don't see all of the work that they do on the back end, whether that's mapping out yardages on the golf course and understanding slope and undulation on the greens and whatnot. So that way, when the PGA Tour player gets to his next shot, they know what club to hand them because they've done all the preparation. So that's kind of the same role that a wealth advisor in this process puts into place. Is we're doing all of the due diligence, the back end, presenting to you the best ways to execute based on whatever life scenario it is, which things change. Your shots change in golf. You might have to hit a different club, or you got a different lie. So that's the purpose of the process and having an advisor, is that we're doing all the heavy lifting. All you have to do is just go out and live now. And, that's what we love to do. So that's our passion.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, Jake. And it ties to what, we've said for years: we guide and you decide. So it ties beautifully to that. So thanks for being on. As I mentioned at the beginning, super smart, capable. You obviously showed that. So thank you for that. Look forward to having you on again. And everyone, we'll wrap up with the usual. Look, thank you for joining the Way to Wealth, where it's all about making money simple, as Jake had said, allowing you to really focus on living now. So look forward to catching up, sharing more of our process, what we're up to on the next podcast. Talk to you soon.
The opinions voiced in Way to Wealth with Scott Ford, Managing Director, Partner, and Wealth Advisor of Carson Wealth, are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Guests on Way to Wealth are not affiliated with CWM LLC or Cetera Advisor Networks LLC. Carson Wealth, 19833 Leitersburg Pike, Suite 1, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21742.